Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Cheryl Weston. We're happy to have you with us tonight. Um, and oh God, I don't know about you, but I'll be so glad when November 5th comes. I don't know what to do, but because we're only about 28 days away from the November 5th election, we will be focusing on the election, getting registered and voting, and also Project 2025. So we'll be posting something every single day. We'll have other things too, but that's going to be the focus, is to encourage people to become registered. And then even once you get registered, vote, vote, vote. This is not really about party, if you're a Republican, Democrat, informer, Libertarian, or whomever. This is about choosing a candidate not only for president, but in our Senate elections and our Congress elections. We need to be choosing someone who is going to put country and people first. Democracy. That's what this election is about. There's many things on the ballot, and we're going to go over it. That's the reason why we want to do something every single day, is maybe, and we may go over some of the same things, but it's important that we do all that we can in order to encourage and get people out to vote. Like I say, register and vote. Um, One of the things, let me start with, is if you need a ride, the North Omaha community area in Omaha, Nebraska is bordered by Cumming and Dodge Street on the south, Interstate 680 on the north. North Omaha, if you need a ride or you want to volunteer to give a ride to the voting polls, please contact 531 999 3206. Again, that number is North Omaha. Call for a ride, 531 999 3206. And if you can call as soon as possible so that they can get the information and they can have an idea of how many volunteers they need to drive individuals to and from the polls, and they will provide that. There's going to be no costs for this. There's encouragement to get people to the polls. So with that in mind, we're going to go into our next section. I already have my ballot, and I got it blurred so you can't see what I voted, but I don't mind telling it. As I said, I think this is the most important that I can remember election in my lifetime. And thank the good Lord, I've been around for a few, and I hope I get to do a few more. But it's important you can get your early ballot. The ballot started being mailed out on the 30th. And then they had early ballot. You can go out to the Douglas County Election Commission's office, and they are great folks to work with. Really, really, they have been. And so let's pull them up. There we go. You can go online. If you have any questions, you can go online and get their contact information. It's so simple. I mean, they really have a friendly website. So here's ways to vote, early voting, your polling place instructions, if you happen to be military, overseas, or so forth, or voters with disability. They want to work with you to make sure you get your voter ID, because this is the first year. If you go, you need to have the proper ID to be able to show. We didn't have a voter problem, fraud problem, but some people thought we did. Those who want to take, and folks, if you just take a minute and think about this, your vote must be very powerful, because all this action that's being taken by certain individuals, they wouldn't be doing it if your vote wasn't important. And that's the reason why I don't understand people that say, well, I don't want to vote, or it's not worth it, or that. If we would get out of that and make our voices heard, we just don't realize how much power we really have in the vote. Candidates up for election, current officials, nomination by petition, all these things are there for you to know what to do. The election workers, maps with the results and so forth. All of this is available on the website. And as I said, if you don't want to go out, you can call. Douglas County Election Commission office is located at 12220 West Center Road, 68144. It's right in the corner in the back, in the corner. The number is 402-444-8683. If you can't remember it by the number, just remember that that is 402-8683 or 444-VOTE. That's what the numbers mean. So, there's no reason, if you have any questions, that people should be in the dark about voting this, at least this election. Can't talk about any others right now. So moving along, like I said, you can get your ballot. I got early ballot, as I said, right here. And make sure that you read your ballot, study your ballot. Make sure that you only use a blue or a black ink pen, ballpoint pen. Do not use like felt or red or any other colors. Make sure you do that and just follow the instructions. But then again, if you have any questions, you can easily call them and they will help you, assist you. They're not going to tell you how to vote. That's not their job. Several items on the election ballot that were of interest, great interest to me. I mean, I read the whole thing and I mark everything. Special City of Omaha Elections Charter Amendment. Number 1, I definitely have against. This amendment is that City Council, they put in the ordinance. They claimed it was supposed to be because of Vinnie Palermo, what he did and all that, but that's a bunch of bull crap. And they rushed it through. They didn't give it time to get the people an opportunity to really understand what this did. And it's in number 3, part of it, the amendment, to insert a provision that allows the city council to remove a city council member for violation of code of conduct that is adopted by 6 members of the city council after a public hearing for certain serious violations. Those violations are it's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm opposed to it. I was opposed to it when it was presented to the city council to vote, and I'm still opposed to it. Nothing's changed. Another one that is really important to me, I felt, is the special issues regarding the ballot initiatives that groups went and got petitions and signatures. And then we have people come and say, oh, no. And now our attorney is saying, oh, maybe all those ballots and things should be thrown out, when he first said it was okay. And then they went to court. Again, people, the reason why they're doing this is because your vote is so important. You can make a difference. And the initiative, make sure you understand, read them, take time. Initiative Measure 434, that a vote for will amend the Nebraska Constitution to provide that except when a woman seeks an abortion necessitated by a medical emergency, or when the pregnancy results from sexual assault or incest, unborn children shall be protected from an abortion in the 2nd and 3rd trimester. A vote against it will not amend the Nebraska Constitution in that manner. That's the reason why it's important to read it and understand the difference between for and against. The other initiative that has to do with abortion is Initiative 439. A vote for that initiative will amend the Nebraska Constitution to provide that all persons shall have a fundamental right to abortion until fetal viability or when needed to protect the life or health of the pregnant patient without interference from the state or its political subdivisions. Fetal viability is defined as the point in pregnancy when the professional judgment of the patient's treating healthcare practitioner or there is a significant likelihood of the fetus sustained survival outside the uterus without the application of extraordinary. Of course, I'm for that because I feel maybe it wouldn't be my personal choice, or my daughter's or my granddaughters, and maybe it would be. But I think the woman and her physician, her primary care, OB, whatever the case, whatever her, as they said in their professional judgment of the patient's treating healthcare practitioner, that's whom should make the decision. Not anyone that's in an office, not anyone that's been elected to it. Those aren't the ones. And what I found, and we'll talk about it more in the project 2025, but recently the former President Donald Trump, his wife, did a video on her practice, what she believed, because her husband, who says that in earlier when he found, he boasted about putting the three judges in, getting it removed, Roe versus Wade. He bragged about he did it. Others wanted to, and he was the one that did it, and he could. Now that he's backing off of that real boasting mode and saying, well, I really believe, and I think it's the state. That's a bunch of bullcrap, folks. They want to take and decide for a woman whether she should or should not be allowed to have an abortion. And I bet you many of those that said that and wanted that, if their family member was involved, they had a 10-year-old daughter or a granddaughter or niece or something that was raped, and particularly if it was raped by a black man and she's pregnant, they're not going to let that one come in. So, but you know what that old saying, if it's good for the gander, it should be good for the geese, or geese, gander, whichever way you want to put it. The point is, it's not their decision to make. It is a personal decision. So let me play this clip. Hopefully, we're going to get this. Here we go. And there may be a political ad that'll come up. Sometimes it works, and then sometimes it doesn't work.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle that I safeguard. Without a doubt, there is no room for compromise when it comes to this essential right that all women possess from birth: individual freedom. What does my body, my choice really mean?
So I'm like, hey, if it's good enough for her, shouldn't it be good enough for everyone else? I think, I don't think other individuals have a right to decide what is good for a woman in their case. That's a personal decision. And although her husband thinks differently, you have to make that decision as to what you think. There's another initiative for Nebraska that will be on there. It is Referendum Measure 435. It is a vote to retain, will keep in effect Section 1 of the Legislative Bill 1402, enacted in 2024 by the Nebraska legislature. This bill provides $10 million annually to fund education scholarships to pay all or part of the cost to educate eligible students attending non-governmental, private-operated elementary and secondary schools in Nebraska. I was in for it before it came law, when they were putting on and they voted and they were able to get it passed. And why I do not support a repeal: you made it law. People got enough signatures to make sure it got here on the ballot, or they made enough signatures to make sure that it was put in there through their senators and talking and so forth, and you elected it and it's on there. Now you want to take and repeal it. Why do I feel that way? Because the inner urban schools, OPS, you do a very poor job. So I would say if there is funding out there that is going to make it possible that children from marginal communities have a choice to be able to get a scholarship, because some people have 5 kids going to school. If they can get that and they can get it into the parochial schools, a privately operated elementary school, if they can do that, then they should have the right. Because I don't feel like our public school system is doing a very good job of educating certain children, or certain schools in certain areas. And all of a sudden, when this came and it passed and all that, I mean, the money come flowing. You got all these different people coming out, the state education system saying, "Oh, this is wrong." What I think it should stay, and then our legislature should make sure those that put this in should be making sure, and we as a community, we should be making them hold the committee that gets to decide on the scholarships, where they go and to whom they go, need to hold them accountable so that it isn't all the select children that get to go, that it will be for those children that really their parents can't afford it. But so they have to try to make the best of the public schools. And there's people who say, well, the public schools will go under. Well, if you're not doing your job, then maybe they should go under, start all over again. That's my take. So I'm not trying to tell people exactly what to do on how to vote. I'm saying how I feel, but I'm asking you to read your ballot and so forth so that you become an informed voter. And that's what we're trying to do with Conversations with Cheryl Weston. We're not trying to say you need to vote just because it's our way of thinking. That's not it. As I said, I wanted to make sure that we start getting a lot of this information out about Project 2025, because that is really, really important. So I'm going to start it off with one of my favorite people. And I know many of you know who this is. This is Congresswoman Jasmine Crawford from out in Texas. And she's always got some little, something, something to say. And it's the way she says it and present. Very intelligent young lady. So without any further ado, hopefully it's worked. Now, there may become a political ad up about either Vargas or Fisher or somebody. We're not supporting any candidate. It's just that I don't have the ability. Sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't. I'm not able to edit that video, edit it out. So let's see what we get and we'll go from there, because that's all you can do.
Liberal Tony Vargas.
Let's
He'll be with
see.
AOC, not us.
Got most of it out.
What this hearing is actually the best example of what waste, fraud, and abuse looks like, because the only reason we're having this hearing is because somebody got their feelings hurt in a debate. And I don't understand why we're wasting taxpayer dollars. Next time, tell your big boy to show up and be ready to handle the woman in the room who hopefully will become the next president of the United States. Nevertheless, while we do have two amazing authors from Project 2025, which it seems like everybody got the memo. Like, yes, I'm going to double down and say it's my thing, but I'm going to make sure I also say that it ain't our homeboys thing, because we know that it doesn't poll very well with the American people, because the American people are woke enough to recognize that there is nothing good in it for them. And the final thing that I will say
Do you
is
know why
that
those
this
costs have
election,
increased?
I didn't ask you a
annually?
question. The final thing that I will say is that this election is the best example of why y'all are so afraid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because then you can't have a simple-minded, underqualified white man somehow end up ascending. Instead, you've got to pay attention to the qualified black woman that is on the other side. And with that, I will yield.
Amen, sister. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thanks for watching.
Amen,
Stay updated on
sister.
breaking news
So,
and top stories on the NBC News
let's
app,
see.
or follow us on social media.
Make sure we got that off. Okay. Yep, we got it. So, get back. Sister girl was on it. On it. on it, sister girl. Sister girl, what she was talking about is the Project 2025, and that's what we want to go over. Project 2025, as she said, there were two people there that were the authors, and it's been proven. Project 2025 is a 922-page manifesto of what a second term of Trump presidency and Republican-controlled Congress would do if elected. This cannot happen. This cannot happen. It's not because of it's because democracy, people, we will lose that. Anytime someone tells you, I will be a dictator, day one, guess what? That's what they mean. He's constantly saying he's going to take revenge. He's going to take it out on all of his opponents, those that are against him, those that don't want to kiss the ring. This country was not supposed to have a dictator. This country is not set up. The democracy is what needs to rule. And what gets me is all this talk was about how old Biden was and he wasn't capable of him. Now you got a daggone near 80-year-old man the same. He's worse. Every time each rally gets more and more, you can see the decay of him. But yet and still, because they want power, they don't want to let that power go. They are voting for it and keeping. And people were talking about, well, they got J.D. Vance as the vice president. People, do you not understand how this how this problem works? If you elect somebody as the president, something happens, guess who takes over? Vice president. Vice president J.D. Vance is worse than Donald Trump because guess what, folks? He was involved in Project 2025. And if you go to Project 2025, you don't have to print it off. You can read it on there online. But I've got several people who have dove into that and dissected and put it out. But guess what? Do you know how many times Trump's name was mentioned? 300 and plus, close to 341 times. Now he's playing all dumb. No, I don't know. I don't remember and all that. Well, if you don't think, then there's something wrong. Right there tells you he shouldn't be elected. Then J.D. Vance wants to say, no, I wasn't involved. I had nothing to do with it. Those are blatant lies. Lies. Not little store. Those are just outright lies. In a secret recording, it was found that the Project 2025 co-author, Russell Vough, admitted in the briefing, he briefed Trump in a private meeting about the implementation of Project 2025, and that he was told by Trump that the project had his support and blessing. J.D. Vance told the architect of the plan, Kevin Roberts, that the plan is the institutional home of Trumpism and that conservatives should load up the muskets. That's what he wrote in the foreword of this book that has been put together by the 2025 authors. Project 25, folks, goes far and above and beyond a national 50-state abortion ban without exceptions for rape, incest, or to save the life of the mother. You can find that on page 6. I read it. On page 455, it calls for the creation of a national abortion surveillance state that would require every state to report data on any pregnant woman who have sought abortion care or even attempted to research abortion care options. Republicans want to take and push this farther. Take a step and pass an abortion bounty hunter law like the one in Texas that would provide financial incentives for private citizens to report and file suit against a woman they suspect sought an abortion or provided information to a woman regarding abortion. Or in some states, the doctors who would do anything to save that life they could be taken, lose their license, and go to jail. And it goes on. This is Project 2025. On page 471, it calls for Planned Parenthood to be defunded and even calls for massive restrictions on the type of medical research, vaccine development that is conducted in the United States that would have criminal liabilities for doctors and researchers if they fail to follow the new. And when you go to there, it will have strict, that's what that word says, strict guidelines. On page 588, it encourages and calls for protection of individuals who protest, intimidate, and obstruct access to reproductive care facilities. These people are crazy. But if you don't get out and vote and stop, forget about whether you're Republican or a Democrat or Libertarian or whatever. Think of what this is going to do for your children, grandchildren, your niece, your nephew, your people. And you think, and this is what's looking, some of you folks think that, oh, that it won't affect me. Yes, it will. It will affect you. Yep. Because you're not here in this world on an island by yourself. There's a whole lot of people out here. And this is wrong. This is a bad. Let me play one of our first Project 2025. Go. If it'll come up. I hope. All right. This was on the Joy Reid Show on MSNBC.
Liberal Tony Vargas.
Again,
He'll be with AOC.
I got most of this out, but I couldn't get it all.
But we begin tonight with Project 2025 and the Republican plan to impose repressive measures on every single one of us. Now, we talk a lot about this looming threat from Project 2025 on this show, but tonight, we're going to start laying out exactly what these people have in mind for you, your families, your friends, and your children, starting with their plans for the Department of Education, a federal department that Republicans have hated ever since it was created by President Jimmy Carter.
President Carter today signed into law a bill establishing a new federal department. It's the Department of Education, something he had promised in his 1976 election campaign. It will be the 13th cabinet-level agency of the government. It will take over 150 or more educational programs now in the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare.
Republicans despise the Department of Education for a number of reasons. One reason, it's easier to sell terrible Republican policies to a compliant public that's not getting a quality education from a weakened public school system. Another reason is the department's mission to foster equal access to education by prohibiting discrimination and ensuring equal access. That runs counter to what Christian nationalists want, which is de facto segregation. Now, before I go any further, you have to remember that after the Supreme Court banned school segregation in 1954, not everyone, including people like Bull Connor, the Commissioner of Public Safety for Birmingham, Alabama, just rolled over and accepted that ban. In fact, they threatened to shut the schools down rather than integrate them. And scores of white families who didn't like the idea of their kids commingling with black kids began to flee whatever schools were forcibly integrated en masse, leaving schools like the high school famously integrated in Little Rock, Arkansas, almost 100% black. This white flight birthed the Christian right movement and fueled their push to create private, sometimes church-sponsored schools that became taxpayer-funded private schools imposing religious doctrines to a select class of typically middle-class or upper-class white students. These were more commonly known as segregation academies, and they became really common because the federal government helped enforce strict plans like busing and denying tax-free status to whites-only schools to continue combating segregation, which brings us to today. It's important to understand what the Department of Education does for you and your kids. Among the things it does is student lending, Pell Grants, something called IDEA, which is basically federal funding for families with children with disabilities, and Title I, which is funding used solely to ensure that all kids, regardless of income, can acquire a quality education. And they keep civil rights data on things like the levels of racial integration in schools. All of that is in danger. Trump's henchmen want to eliminate the Department of Education. They want to create block grants to funnel tax dollars to private and religious schools, to basically make white flight a taxpayer-funded benefit. They want to scale back enforcement of civil rights laws like Title IX, which prohibits gender-based discrimination. They want to enact a Parents' Bill of Rights modeled on Moms for Liberty, the book banning group. They want to take federal funding away from schools with curricula, books, or classes that address race, racism, gender, and sexuality. They want to eliminate school administrator positions that oversee DEI initiatives, resurrect the discredited 1776 Commission with the single goal of restoring quote unquote patriotic education in schools, North Korea style. Far more sinister is what's buried deep within Project 2025, which any person who sends their child to public school should care about. They want to mandate that all students in schools receiving federal funding must complete the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. In plain English, that's a military entrance exam. You heard me right. They want to require your kids to take a military entrance exam. If you flip to page 134 of the 900-page Project 2025 manifesto, you'll read this proposal, and I quote, "To improve military recruiters' access to secondary schools and require the completion of the Armed Services and Vocational Aptitude Battery, the military entrance examination, by all students in schools that receive federal funding." And guess who would be exempt from that requirement, since they don't get federal funds? Private school kids. You feel me now? Look, my kids are grown adults, but do you feel comfortable having your babies handed over to the military industrial complex so King Trump can use and discard them like old shell casings? Maybe sign them up to use on American streets to shoot protesters because he's promised to do that. Or use them to round up brown migrants to herd them off to the deportation camps that he's promised to build, or fight in his migrant fight club, or fight in some random war he starts to help out his friend Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un or whatever other madness he dreams up. Now, of course, Trump never mentions any of this because it's not exactly politically popular to tell the world you want to take money from poorer kids who want to go to college and take grants away from kids with disabilities and promote an education system styled on communist systems like North Korea, China, and Russia, or make school kids take a military entrance exam while letting the kids in segregation academies slide. But that's exactly what Trump and his Project 2025 friends want to do. Joining me now is Judd Legum, author of Public Information, and Megan Uzel, Director of Strategic Initiatives and External Affairs for Democracy Forward. Thank you both for being here. Megan, I do want to start with you because Democracy Forward is doing a great service to America by creating something online that people can use to go through Project 2025 themselves. Can you just talk about that a little bit? You call it the People's Guide to Project 2025. Please talk about it, and then talk about anything I've missed, or if you want to add anything to what I've described as their plans for education.
Liberal Tony Vargas. He'll be with AOC, not us.
Most definitely.
Thank you, Joy, very much. That's right. Democracy Forward has put together the People's Guide to Project 2025. Not everyone has to go read all 900 pages of it. We've done that for them. But what it really does is show and make accessible all of the great harms and threats to democracy that are contained in the extremist playbook. I mean, to be clear, Project 2025 is an existential threat to our democracy. And with regard to public education, all of the you laid it out so well in your introduction. The attacks that are contained in Project 2025 are designed to fundamentally disrupt and dismantle public education in our country as we know it. Public education is so core and fundamental to our nation's democracy. And I have the great fortune of being able to work with communities, families, students, teachers, in states and cities across the country, where they're on the front lines of some of these, horrific ideas, and seeing firsthand the harms that are being perpetuated in these communities, and then knowing that Project 2025 is really Moms for Liberty on steroids. Let's be clear. The people behind Project 2025 aren't seeking just to undermine public education. They're seeking to undermine our democracy, delegitimize, defund public education, roll back protections for marginalized groups, reduce funding for low-income students, expand school privatization, and ultimately eradicate the Department of Education. And that is something that will really hurt all of the students across the country, and people should be very worried about that.
Yeah, and Judd, the pretense right now, the trick that Donald Trump is trying to play on all of us is to say, well, I don't know anything about that. Those people don't have anything to do with me. I mean, that's obviously something that rhymes with pull quit. But talk about that a little bit, because these are his people, right?
Yeah, and I probably believe the fact that Donald Trump hasn't read this 920-page document, but of course, that's the point. He is not a policy wonk, but if you look through, and in my newsletter, we did this, each individual author and the editors of each chapter, 31 of the 38 key authors and editors were members of his first administration, and the others are key outside allies. So what's going to happen, just like it happened in the first administration, if Donald Trump were to win, is that he may not be keying in on every single proposal within Project 2025, but these people will be back in those positions, and these proposals will be implemented because Trump is not focused on policy, he is focused on power. And that's why the document itself, whether or not Trump is familiar with each word, is very important, because it does represent the goals of the people who are aligned with Trump, who are deeply committed to enacting some of these policies, which are extremely radical.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Grover Norquist once said that they don't care, whether the Republican president that they would like to have in office is, brilliant, intelligent, or knows anything about the tax policies he wants to put in. He just needs to have 5 working digits to sign the bills. And the Project 2025 people are like, well, we're the smart people. We're going to come up with all the plans, just like we came up with the list of Supreme Court nominees for every Republican president. He just has to implement and sign the bills. He'll play golf most of the time. Megan, let's go through, because we need just to go back to the Department of Education and how important it is. As of present, 49.4 million American children are in public schools. 5.5 million are in private schools. There are 95,577 public schools in America and 30,492 private schools. This is lots and lots and lots of American children who would be impacted if you got rid of the Department of Education. You're talking about Pell Grants. You're talking about kids not being able to get basic money for college. You're already seeing states implement their own versions of Project 2025. Alaska, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, and Vermont have already rejected school summer food programs. They're already saying we don't want to feed kids in school. Nebraska initially rejected it. So this is already being implemented, right? School voucher programs are being rolled out in states, red states across the country: Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, North Carolina.
Hey there, MSNBC.
So how does this fit in? Just exactly what I said is, look on your ballot. There we have, and let me pull that back up. It is initiative referendum by petition of the people, measurement 435. That's what's happening, folks. We have got to be more careful. We have to watch. We have to be more alert, and take a look at these things that are happening, because it is going to affect, as Joy clearly laid out the maps that it affects. You heard her talk about Nebraska was all involved. And when Governor Pillen signed the laws that he signed at the end of the legislature, he said, and there's more to come. And that's right. If we don't put a stop to it, and the only way we can put a stop to it is get out and vote. So that's going to be what we're talking about for 2025 for tonight. As I said, every day there will be some more postings. We're going to try and push it, like I said, we can't do 990 some pages in once, but there have been some people who have put together some videos that they have breaking it down and into sections. As I clearly pointed out, page numbers. You can go online and just Google Project 2025 and the complete package of 991 pages would be there. So I hope that you enjoyed the show. I hope that you found it to be informative. We would like for you to subscribe to Conversations with Cheryl Weston. Also, send us some comments as to what you might like to see us talk about or put on. We're happy to hear that. And then put like or dislike. And, people, there were some comments on various ones that we produce. My whole focus is it's your right to have that comment. As long as it isn't vulgar and things, I'm not going to take it down. That's your right. We can't all agree on everything. But I do want to leave with this. Maya Angelou, one of my favorite authors, said, when people tell you who they are, what they're going to do, believe them, because that is what they are and that's what they're going to do. And we're seeing this each and every day within our state, our local offices, and our national. Have a great evening. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to Conversations with Cheryl Weston.